Well, a federal judge halted President Biden's plans to repeal Title 42 policy at the southern border. That repeal would have taken place today. So far as I know, it has not. Joining me now to talk about it, Senator Joni Ernst of the great state of Iowa. Senator Ernst, great to see you, ma'am. What's going to happen here? The judge repealed. Biden's going to appeal it, I guess. Today's the deadline. What's going to happen? Do you know?
Yes, well, we know that the judge made the right call, but it does sound like the Biden administration will appeal the judge's ruling. So, of course, we all believe, or most of us believe, that Title 42 should stay in place. Right now, we have about 7,000 illegal immigrants a day flowing across our southern border. If they were to lift Title 42, even Biden's administration has stated that we would see 18,000 illegals crossing the border every single day. So let's keep Title 42 in place. I think it's the best thing we could do.
You have legislation pending, I'm told. You got something cooking that would somehow ameliorate the illegal immigrant situation?
Well, let's think back to the Trump administration, and President Trump was all about building the wall, so much so that the federal government did purchase those materials to build the wall along the southern border. Biden, of course, went into office and stopped the building of the wall on the southern border. Now we have all of these materials that are unused, and what Biden is doing, President Biden is doing, is paying upwards of $3 million per day for contractors to guard the unused materials. So, Larry, I'm introducing legislation that would allow the states that want to continue to build the wall, it would allow them to take those materials provided by the federal government. It would allow those states to build the wall. We know that Arizona is one of those states that would like to build the wall, and certainly there are other states that would like to participate as well.
So, okay, I didn't realize there's federal laws that prevent them from taking action. I didn't know. I mean, I know that materials and stuff are sitting next to what was the wall and they're just rusting. It's the worst waste of money. I've argued, as you may know, Senator, Save America, Build the Wall, along with Remain in Mexico and make the deportation. But I didn't know the states couldn't build the wall.
Right, and these are materials that were purchased by the federal government. So we would have to transfer those materials, transfer those materials to the states so long as they stick with the original intent. What we would not want to do is a state like California, say, hey, I'd love to use these materials, but not use them for the wall. So there actually would have to be legislation put in place by Congress and signed by the President of the United States to allow the transfer of those materials to complete those sections of the wall.
Interesting. Good idea. Just for a last minute, Senator Ernst, any updates to, I don't know, about legislating Title 42? I know Bill Hagerty wanted to change the reasoning, put in fentanyl, take out COVID. Any legislative efforts to keep Title 42, or for that matter, ma'am, to stop illegal immigration?
Absolutely, Larry. And there is a lot of legislation that has been drawn up by Republicans in Congress surrounding Title 42. And that's why you will see Democrats hesitant to bring up bills where any of the Title 42 legislation could be attached as an amendment. So we have this back and forth going. We believe that preventing illegals from coming into the United States is really important. The Democrats, on the other hand, not so much.
All right. All right, Senator Ernst, thank you. Very appreciate it.